29th of May. And that, of course, is handover day when their tenure ends. Now, Special Advisor to the CCB chairman on general duties confirmed that necessary arrangements are being made for the insurance of the assets forms, the outgoing officials and their successors as well.
Okay, this is basically, so we're back, we're in that season. Everything is kicking down towards next month, May 29th to be exact. And so there are processes obviously that have to happen between now and that time. That's minus the electoral, the cases going to the tribunals and being heard or discussed there. But yes, we're going to continue like nothing happened and the elections have happened and we need to prepare to get in the new government. So one of the mandatory things that should happen, or one of the requirements that's supposed to happen, is the mandatory declaration of assets. The story talks about it, obviously happens at the start of the tenure and at the end of the tenure. Obviously, for most Nigerians would understand that the entire idea is to be able to determine, for instance, well, to be able to help determine at some point, or if people have been able to help themselves to everything other than what they should have gotten, be able to keep a track on what assets they came into office with and what they left with. So basically, that's what this story is talking about, just saying that, hey, it's almost time for the government, for the members of this government to do their declarations because they are due out on the 29th. They've collected all the required forms, all the officials are expected to, or they've taken line what all the officials are expected to do, declare what assets they have at the end of this tenure. Obviously, somebody's supposed to be looking at, what has happened in between when they entered and when they've gone out, because there are some limitations to what the members of government can do, elected officials can do during the course of their tenure, because in Nigeria, obviously, all these guys have, every member is a full-time, you're basically either you are in these positions full-time, it's not a part-time function, so there are some things. So it's good to keep these things running. I'm more worried about, while this is part of a process, like a part of a process like every other audit process, what interests me the most is, what happens after it's gone. Is this being put to the proper use, apart from using it as, evidence for whatever court cases whoever wants to drop at the end of the day? This is a control that we built in, and it's something that we need to keep working with. So nothing much to say about this. It's just government as usual, really.
All right, let's go on to this one coming from Daily Trust. Now, federal government at the weekend inaugurated 10 brand new firefighting trucks, and these trucks are said to be worth about 12 billion naira, and they'll be deployed to Lagos, Kano, and Abuja airports. Now, the Minister of Aviation inaugurated the trucks, and he did mention the Sosoliso incident from 2005.
Okay, so thank you, Zibby. As you've just stated, the Minister for Aviation during the weekend launched 10 firefighting trucks, and he did reference the unfortunate Sosoliso incident of 2002. And our thoughts continue to go out to the families of all the people who lost their lives during the said events. Now, having said that, how this is news is beyond me, because this is supposed to be a routine exercise for the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria. Now, these 10 trucks were reportedly acquired at the sum of 12 billion naira. What that means is that each truck cumulatively costs 1.2 billion naira on the average. And using, say, a rate of 460 naira to the dollar, that's $2.6 million for a firefighting truck. Now, that's very interesting, because even when you factor in the cost of clearing the vehicles, assuming they pay the commercial rates, $2.6 million is quite excessive. So the questions have to be asked. These trucks that were gotten, are they brand new trucks? Are they refurbished or renovated trucks? Better still, how are they going to be deployed? Because sometime in 2020, the Interior Ministry, under the headship of Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, got 10 firefighting trucks for 1.8 billion. That was 2020. 3 years later, we're getting 10 trucks for 12 billion now. What exactly is going on? And there are more questions then answers concerning this transaction, concerning this set of circumstances, and the authorities need to provide more details. But it's very disturbing that in 2023, we're still faced with challenges like this. We're still faced with transactions regarding public money, and we don't have all the full details. But it's a good purchase, but the costing elements require further interrogation. Thank you.
All right, well, let us know what your thoughts are. The WhatsApp number is 0809 444 0981. You can also tweet at Smooth981, and you can catch the live stream up on our YouTube channel. It's Smooth981. Now, the Presidential Campaign Council of the APC says the incoming administration of President-elect Bola Tinubu will decide the date of fuel subsidy removal. Now, though the regime of the current president says the policy would end by June, when the budget for the initiative would lapse, Mr. Festus Keyamo noted that next government would have to determine the terminal date for subsidy removal. Now, a lot of Nigerians are worried in most cases and are facing anxiety over this removal and what it would mean for them.
So obviously, this is one of the big things for Nigeria as a country going into the new year, especially with the new regime. The current government, or the outgoing government, as we'd like to say, has basically kicked this problem down the road and put it in a nice, tidy new box for the new government to inherit because they don't want to deal with it. It's rather unfortunate because I remember that when the government first came in 2015, for some people, a lot of people felt that a lot of guys who had taken positions on the subsidy issues felt that those were the best possible times for the government to have to make that move and eased it in for Nigerians, and would have probably recovered from that process at this point. Unfortunately, the government obviously, and in Nigeria, we need to understand that there are various viewpoints on where we should go economically and how we should proceed economically. So for everybody who wants a pure capitalist system where everything is floating, laws of demand and supply affect everything, both the oil prices and currency. There are other people who have more restrictive thought processes around it, and for good reason and for whatever reason that they have. But this government basically did not deal with the issue at that point, where there was enough goodwill, there was enough time to recover from it. We didn't have the other forces, current economic forces that we're battling with. Because right now, we're not just talking about this, we're still talking about power sector, cost in the power sector. We're talking about our currency, freeing the currency. My concern, and I know that I believe those are some of the things that will hit the government when they have to take this decision, make this move finally, would be how many of these things do they want to put into play at the same time? How do they want to provide whatever? How do they want to deal with the labor unions and the other forces around them in trying to assuage their fears and provide the palliatives of whatever sorts? At the same time, looking at how they're able to fund their government, because obviously, as a new government, they want to do a lot of projects. Of typical infrastructure thing would come in. They have their own programs. They need to fund it. And at the moment, we are not a cash-rich nation. We don't have, it's obvious that we need the cash to come in. And one of the biggest pots or biggest pipelines where this money is flowing out today is subsidies. So this government has to take a decision. They can't push it off. They can't kick it forward like the new government has to take a decision. They can't kick it forward like this current government. Because their terminal date is still far further in front, but they also need to be able to take into consideration whatever forces come back. I don't want to quote the incoming president, but he had actually said something. He had made something while he was campaigning that he was going to remove it, and there was nothing that could happen because it was a clear decision. And he was not the only candidate. All the other candidates actually spoke in the same vein that they were going to remove it. So yes, Mr. Keyamo and the officials have spoken that, hey, that the government is a continuum, but they'll make a decision when they come there. But it's obvious that this is going. How it will go is a different question, and Nigerians remain to see how it will go. But will it go? It will go. So I think we just brace ourselves up for an interesting year ahead. So that's the best I can say about it.
Right. Let's go on to WhatsApp and read a few messages. Orov says, I don't understand. Was the money spent on trucks or aircraft? I don't get it. Did they use the parallel market rate or what? If those are government assets, then they should have accessed funds at CBN rates. So what rate did they use? And Benga says, we know what is going on with the firefighting trucks. How transparent was the process for their acquisition? When you compare the rates at which other countries purchase the same items, one can only sigh. And Tile says 10 fire trucks for the amount it was purchased for. The heartache. Public money is better to spend than one's own money. And Joseph Many says, please, those fire trucks purchased, were they in the ongoing budgets? Were they in the ongoing budget? Right, let's take a break and we'll continue the conversation on the other side. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. The WhatsApp number again is 0809 440 981. Stay with us. How are you? Good morning. So Mr. C, we'll go on to number 6, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
we'll go
right.
on to number 6. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. C. I'm definitely not missing the traffic. That's one thing that's one thing I love that I don't have to deal with here.
Oh, wow.
It's just amazing.
Life is just blissful. No traffic. I can step back home for quick lunch and siesta if I choose to for 1 hour and come back to the office. Bliss. Or like having to spend 4 hours in transit in Lagos.
That's insane.
It's mad, really. It's mad on its own.
It's close. Simple. First back. Life and life is
This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. Our analysts are in, Mr. C and Chibuzor. We're looking at the news stories across the country. Don't forget to be a part of it. Let us know what your thoughts are. 0809 440 981. That is the WhatsApp number. And you can also tweet at Smooth 981. Catch the live stream up on our YouTube channel, Smooth 981. From this day, the 36 governors in the country are expected to meet with economic and financial agencies in the country tomorrow over the management of their state security votes. Now, the agencies expected at this meeting include the EFCC, the ICPC, and the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Even the central bank will be at this meeting. Now, just a quick background, security votes is a monthly allocation that is given to governments or state governments for improved security. Mr. C? Okay, so Chibuzor, do you want to go on?
Okay, the security votes are some of the most controversial parts of our current system, and it's something that's been debated widely over the years. What do the governors do with the security votes? Why do they need to have the security votes? Who should deal with the security votes? Should there be more oversight on the security votes? Those are typical questions Nigerians have always asked themselves about the security votes, because there seems to be some conflict. Most times when the governors typically have a cop-out where they say they are the chief security officers of the state, but have no control over security apparatus. When there are major incidents and issues, they push that envelope back to the federal government and say, hey, the system you have does not allow us to control the security forces and the security infrastructure. But hey, our role says that this is what we are. But most people also always point out that the governors still have that massive unaccounted bucket called the security votes. And I believe that this is one of this meeting is a step towards looking at how do they manage, how should there be visibility, should there be some governance around use of the security votes. My challenge is that obviously a lot of these meetings today are quite informal. There is no, whatever discussion comes out of this, or whatever agreements come out of this, or understandings come out of this, are not law. The governments can't take advice. The governors can't take advice and act on this advice. They are not law, but they are not going to be held. While yes, you have some of the security agencies who will try to hold them to task around this agreement, but in reality, they need to go to the courts. They do not, there's nothing that really holds them. The flip side, or other side about it is that it's happening this is the 3rd of April. Most of these governors are exiting on the 29th, just barely a month after. So what happens after they leave? Will these agreements carry on into the new governments who also need to come in and show that they are in charge of their states? They will want to carry out some projects of their own, like you see in places like Lagos, where the state governments purchases vehicles, security equipment, and distributes it to these various things. And like in Lagos, you have different other pseudo security forces that have been stepped up, like your community, to help with community security and stuff like that. So there is a way you can utilize, and I think that's been the arguments of most Nigerians, that these funds can be put into very good use that allows the governors play a very major role in the security infrastructure of the states without having control of the police force or other things like that, which are still currently in debate, with the governors wanting to have their own the state policing, community policing, whatever form of policing that they would have direct control over. But yes, I see largely as a step where these security organizations or these particular organizations want to have more control in how the government spend it, want to help. I would believe it would want to help push some level of governance around the use of the security votes and how they are managed. Because obviously, even as from the point of from things like financial security, financial intelligence, these are large chunks of money that, if in the wrong hands and not put into proper use, can also be a very dangerous source of income or source for other forces and negative forces that the governments will have to deal with on a larger scale. So that's what I see this at. But here, a major issue is that it's happening too late in the day. And what legal framework does this have over any of the governors who are sitting at those meetings and having those discussions today?
All right, let's go onto WhatsApp and look at some messages coming through. Gab says, check the cost of those fire trucks online. While people are excited having tribal or religious wars within themselves, their futures are being catered away, while masses are looking for irrelevancies. There's a lot more going on. By the time they are done, they would be left with nothing. Ibukun says, Zibby, last week I said if the Burj Khalifa was built in Nigeria, it would be 10 times the cost. Now, see with the cost of fire trucks, did we buy a certain brand made of vibranium? These things make me weep. And Benga says, in my view, security vote is money given to officials like governors to spend any way they like. It's money for the boys. Nothing will come out of this meeting. And Ajayi says, security votes the creation of the military, which have no place in a democratic government. There's no room for any expenditure without appropriation from the National or State Assembly. All right, thanks, Ajayi, for your message. And let's go on to the next story. Now, the president has approved the amendment of the 2022-2023 Deep Offshore Oil Block mini bid round. And this story comes from Premium Times. Mr. C?
Yes, thank you, Zibby. So initially, there was a bid round scheduled, and it was supposed to terminate before the outgoing administration leaves office. However, due to concerted concerns raised by both foreign and local investors, the outgoing administration has had to review the process and has extended the deadline for submission of technical and commercial bids to the 19th of May. And then for the signing ceremonies, sometime between 28th of July, I believe. Now, this was done to ensure that there's no confusion when the present administration hands over to the next administration. And they wanted everything to be clear because from previous experiences, they've been a bit unsettled by regulatory changes midway into validly signed agreement periods, and they wanted to avoid a repeat of such scenarios. So we look forward to the extension, and we look forward to seeing the investors, foreign and or local, who come forward to bid for this deep water round, and how we can then get the proceeds from this auction or this bid round to further develop the petroleum industry and by extension the economy.
All right, let's go on to WhatsApp. Tonye from Magodo said, fire trucks need one key ingredient to function properly: water. How many hydrants are in operation today in Lagos, not to talk about the rest of the country? This expenditure is the worst in a long list of undistinguished expenditures in the history of this country. Victor Shewan says a 1 liter wage in the US will get you 12 liters of grade A fuel, but a daily minimum wage in Nigeria can only get you 5 liters of fuel, even with subsidy. Okay, let's move on to the next story. And this one comes from Punch. Now, the governor of Lagos State says residents should expect the groundbreaking ceremony of the Fourth Mainland Bridge in the next couple of months. And he's also promised accelerated development in the state in the next 4 years. And according to the governor, the Fourth Mainland Bridge should be ready by 2027.
Okay, obviously, new tenure, last 4 years, next 4 years, and obviously, like most other governors and most other public officers, one of the biggest things I find in Nigeria when it comes to public service officers or elected officials at particular levels, executive levels, is that pushing the infrastructure is one of the things that they show to the people that they've delivered on their mandates. The Fourth Mainland Bridge has been something that has always dangled, has been that juicy carrot that's dangled in front of most Lagos state governors over the years, that, you know, this is where they would make their mark. And it looks like Governor Sanwo-Olu wants to make his mark with, you know, the Fourth Mainland Bridge as his platform project before he leaves his tenure. For Lagosians, it will be a great thing. Anybody transversing to Lagos or living in Lagos, it would be a good thing to have that you have an alternative to the Third Mainland Bridge, especially as you look at the other side of Lagos, the Lekki Express side has expanded, is densely populated and linking of the Ikorodu part of Lagos. That is where a lot of people, there are a lot of residents of Lagosians residing there. So theoretically, it's a very good thing. It's great to see and great to hear that this will be done in the next 4 years. Just in time before the next elections, I believe, and before they hand over to new government. So obviously that will be put on the table also when the incoming government is coming in. This is one of the dividends of democracy and having the right organizations within the state. My challenge, and this is just a very loose thread back to what we have in the earlier story about the fire trucks, is down to public procurement. One of the challenges I have with major infrastructure projects is that large infrastructure projects in Nigeria comes with large infrastructure spending. And most times you're not able to tie this expense, the money expended, to actual value of those things. It's, for lack of a better word, typically appears inflated. I hope we're able to avoid this. I hope we're able to limit this. I don't think we can ever avoid it, really. I'll be able to reduce this to something that is acceptable and, you know, gives value to whatever is going to be delivered at the end of the day. And I hope we be able to deliver quality. The other issues around building this bridge, settling some of the displaced communities. Obviously, in typical Nigerian style, there's been over the last 10 years, a lot of prospecting has happened around the areas where this bridge is supposed to have transversed. So a lot of people have bought property around it. A lot of people have built up property actually around the entire length of where the bridge passed. Obviously, there's going to have to be some displacement, and people are hoping they'll be settled and all that. I do hope all those issues will be clearly sorted out while they go forward to build this bridge. And yes, like most Lagosians or people living in Lagos at the moment, it will be nice to see that bridge come on and hopefully reduce the traffic on the other lane. So we need to see how it is. I don't think there's anything debating if we should be looking at alternate needs, because I think that the government is set on having to deliver this route, whatever opinion anybody else has. I recall that one of the contestants in the last election actually had an alternate view on this project. But hey, my thing, if it's going to be delivered, let it be delivered with value. Let's have something to work with, and let's look forward to 2027 and hope that while they're constructing this, if there's any impact everywhere, we will do a better job at managing it and reducing the impact on other Nigerians who might have to suffer the cost of having this happen. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and look towards 2027 and see how this goes on.
All right, and from Premium Times, just about a minute ago, Defense Headquarters said troops of Operation World Punch, in conjunction with special forces, have conducted clearance operations in terrorist enclaves at Bagoma, Rema, and villages all around Benin Gwari in Kaduna State. And 11 terrorists have been neutralized from that encounter in the states.
Okay, thank you, Zibby. So very quickly, kudos to the Nigerian military for conducting another operation to decimate or terminate terrorists, as they are fond to say. And we note that 11 terrorists were killed in this recent operation, and various arms and ammunition were recovered from them. Now, this is part of their sustained efforts to restore complete peace, law and order to the affected communities and states across the northern part of Nigeria. And I dare say that they will continue to need the support of the public if they're going to be successful in their goals and objectives. Well, kudos to them, and let's hope that this is sustained long-term so that peace can be restored to all the terror-stricken areas of Nigeria.
All right, so let's just look at a few messages. Chukwuemeka says, I've come to understand that it's only in Nigeria that the laws of gravity applies. Whatever goes up never comes down. Bread went up from 450 naira to 1,200 naira. POS charges from 100 to 5,000. Now, for every 1,000 naira, it's 100 naira. With this, how is subsidy removal possible? Tony from Magodo says, before they build the fourth mainland bridge, can they fix Carter Bridge and the one linking Surulere to CMS? And Windy says, forget the fourth mainland bridge. They have to fix Apongo. And Dami says, the mismanagement of Nigeria's security situation is the biggest highlight of the current administration. Well, that is all the time that we have for Freshly Pressed this morning. Thank you for listening and sending in your thoughts as well. Special thanks to our analysts, Mr. C and Chibuzor, for joining us this morning.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Zibby. Have a lovely day, Lagos, Mr. C. Bye.
Do stay with us. There's a lot more to come on the Smooth Breakfast.